Hi there, and thank you and congratulations. You are listening to the 100th episode continuously, never missing a week of Man Listening, the podcast. Who knew? You are now one of 40,000 plus downloads in 58 countries on 6 continents. Unbelievable. All that from my closet. Now, I did get in the car and drive to Santa Monica a year ago and stopped along the way, and I've driven to Tampa and to, taken a flight up to New York City, and I've been all over the place. And this podcast is dedicated to the idea that not all of the most powerful women in the world are celebrities. In fact, most of the most powerful and resilient women in the world you've never heard of. And so we don't talk to Beyonce and Oprah and, Taylor Swift, although I would, if they wanted to, sure. But, in the culture of celebrity, I think we should celebrate women who are anything but ordinary. They are just powerful and inspiring. And so for the 100th episode, I was very intentional. We're talking to, and man, am I excited about this, the woman who's been my therapist for 15 years. And if you've ever heard The Shrink Next Door or seen the TV series, this is 180 degrees the other way. There are no boundary violations here, no ethical violations. I will tell you that Tammy Bell has helped me personally immensely, and she is retiring at the end of the month after more than 30 years of treating chronic relapsers, people who could not stay clean and sober. And she specialized in the research and the treatment of chronic relapsers in something called relapse prevention, which she more or less founded. And so she's kind of a big deal. She advised and consulted with a man named Father Martin, who was instrumental in helping Bill Wilson in the founding and bringing to maturation Alcoholics Anonymous. And then she's also on the treatment side, worked with a guy and was mentored by a guy named Terry Gorski, and you'll hear her talk about that. But mainly, I just respect her immensely. She's been able to help me personally so very much through a lot of different, when my parents died and when my birth mother died and finding my birth mother, and it's just a whole host of things. We will miss you, Tammy Bell. I promise not to cry. That's what I'll tell you. I promise not to cry. But you guys are in for a treat. This is just amazing. We're gonna do it over 2 episodes. It's so good. Take a listen.
Because I believe I did what I was supposed to do with my life, and I did not need to be distracted by my stuff, and I wasn't. So when I sit down with people, most of the time, I can actually focus on them because I don't have I don't have trauma, and I don't have addiction, and I just haven't had to deal with those pains other people have had to deal with.
What is the sound of one man listening? This is Man Listening, a fresh podcast featuring the stories of strong women who bounce back. Man Listening, because every woman deserves to be heard.
Hi there, and welcome to Man Listening. I'm Stuart Watson, and welcome to the 100th episode. We taped this episode on the week that it was announced that more than 100,000 Americans died last year of overdoses, drug overdoses. This has been an epidemic that has been hidden for way, way too long. There are many deaths of alcoholism, including some in my family, which you don't really see alcoholism or drug addiction or substance use disorder on the death certificate. But that makes the work that this woman does all the more profound. Tammy Bell has worked for decades in the prevention of relapse. She was among the first and the foremost to work in the area of relapse prevention from drug addiction, substance use disorder, which infiltrates every part, every segment. And so what she does is so important, and I personally am so grateful to her. So, ladies and gentlemen, Tammy Bell. Where were you born?
Mansfield, Ohio.
Hospital or home?
Hospital.
For your mother, you're number what of how many?
1 of 3.
You're the oldest.
Big shock. Yeah, I think they would tell you I was a pretty good big sister. They get on my nerves once in a while, and I'd let them know who was bigger and stronger.
But you're speaking. You're close. You're friendly.
Oh, yeah, very close.
Yeah.
We never had issues. Felt like I was real mature real fast, and they were immature for a long time. So to me, they just felt I just kind of ignored them. And I didn't believe in hurting them, beating them up. I could have.
You were bigger than them.
I let them know I could, but I really never touched them.
What should I know about your mother just to understand you?
I was lucky enough to be raised by someone that was just the kindest. She's the mother every kid deserved. So I had a normal childhood. That thing people don't think exists, I had that. And I think I see it on a spiritual plane, Stuart. I had a normal childhood, so I didn't have a bunch of stuff in the way between me and the people I was working with. She was an uneducated woman. She came from poor people. She was pulled out of school in 10th grade to help at home.
And where did she come from?
She came from Kentucky.
Oh, wow. So her parents did what for a living? What part of Kentucky?
Coal mine.
Coal miners.
And stay-at-home dad and mom.
So you're the coal miner's granddaughter.
I am the coal miner's granddaughter. And my father was raised in the holler next to Butcher Holler. So yeah, when that song came out, I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, my mom, I don't think we ever had a fight.
That's
we were
amazing.
close. She did things with me. She spent time with me. She liked hanging out with me.
So when you were 2 years old, your mother would you described you as?
Just a real handful.
Had a lot of questions.
I was a handful. I was making stuff as a little tiny thing, probably by the age of 3, and going door to door selling it, talking to all the neighbors. People half a mile away probably knew me. She had a hard time keeping up with me.
So how come you're not a saleswoman? How come you're not like a...
That never interested me. I think I was just, to me it was just a curious thing. It wasn't about the selling, it was what he was going door to door and talking to people, and I thought
Let's try this out.
I thought they'd like my pictures.
Yeah, that's good. But if you looked at the high school yearbook...
I was in the popular crowd, but not the popular person. I wasn't the homecoming queen, but I was in that crowd. I was well known.
Social.
Yeah. I think back then I was known. I wasn't one of the girls that was demure and sweet and everything. If you said something mean to me or anybody else, I called you on it right there, no matter who was standing there. So I think they would have said, "Damn, that girl was direct." I can remember.
Not rude.
No, I didn't want any conflict, but I can remember one time the row of football players sitting there, and one of the mentally challenged kids, this is high school, walked by, and they kicked his stuff out from under him, and it went flying, and I watched Scott do it. And that just went right through me. Everyone else, because Scott was a big famous football player, would have backed down, but I just went right up, and I just shamed the whole bunch of them, and I helped the kid pick up his books. And you can get away with this if you're attractive, and I was. I remember Scott got defensive, and I said, "Scott, you big bully, you're sickening." And I helped this kid pick up his books, and he said something about, "Well, why don't you date him?" And I said, "Oh, believe me, he's got a much better shot than you do." And the whole crowd, that whole football team went, "Woo!" But I could never, even in high school, I was well liked, But if somebody was being picked on, or I just didn't put up with that. So they saw me as kind of tough, because the other girls would all kind of cower, and I just wasn't afraid. So,
Yeah. What kind of extracurriculars?
drama, big time.
Musical or?
No, just every school play, starring in most of them. That was my bag. I loved it. I thought that's what I was going to do.
What appealed to you about that?
Taking on someone else's personality and seeing if I could become that person, seeing if I could understand them and become them.
Again, trying on roles. Like,
I
let's
loved it.
try this.
I won all the awards. I loved it. The drama department had put me in for a scholarship shot at Ohio State, and the guy came up and watched one of the plays, and he asked me to apply, but I didn't go because my father had said, I will take you to that tryout if you promise me you won't get married, because I was engaged.
Oh, how'd that happen?
Fell in love with my husband as a teenager.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Y'all were high school sweethearts?
He was my second high school sweetheart, yeah.
Where did you first lay eyes on your husband?
Visiting my aunt and uncle. He was helping my uncle work on a car, and I walked by the car. He was very, very cute. He was handsome. He had long hair. I liked that back then, and he just really looked good. That was pretty much all it was at the beginning.
Yeah. Then what told you that he was not just good looking? What was
When
it?
we started dating. When we actually started dating, which I kind of maneuvered and made happen.
How did you do that?
I said to my aunt, who is that? She goes, oh, that's the nicest boy. She said, I should fix you up with him. And I said, do it. So
Again, direct.
Yeah.
Knew what you wanted.
It's just weird, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so we dated, and he was just really thoughtful, kind, easygoing.
Like, what kind of thing would he do that wasn't just
I
like
would
holding
see him
the door?
around their little kids,
Uh-huh.
and he was gentle and easy with them and thoughtful when they were pesky, and he didn't just throw them, push them away like other people would. He would look at their little thing and explain it to them, and then he just was a good person. You could see it. And on our second date, we were going somewhere, and he goes, so just so you know, he had graduated high school. He goes, I've got big plans, and one of the things I just want to get right out on the table is I've had responsibility my whole life, and I don't want it anymore. So like getting married and stuff like that is not part of my thinking. And I was looking out a car window going, oh my God, this guy is crazy about me. Because who puts that out on the table,
Did he propose?
Yes, and he was going into the military. So either I could go on to college without him, and he would go into the military and travel, and we'd try to hold it together, or we'd better get married.
Was this post-Vietnam?
Yes, just after. He went in 75. I think Vietnam ended in 73, didn't it?
What appealed to him about the military service?
I think he just didn't know what else he wanted to do with his life. Actually, he saw no way to go to college. He comes from very poor people. I come from working class poor people. So kind of like he comes from very poor, kind of just poor. And he didn't see any way to go to college, and he wanted to do computers. So he thought he'd go in, they'd train him in computers, which they did not.
Right. So what a shock.
Yeah.
What did your dad do for a living?
He was a supervisor at a steel mill.
And he wanted you to get an education.
No, it didn't matter to him. He didn't have much respect for college-educated people.
But he did not want you to get married.
Well, he just didn't want to put anything into it if I was going to get married.
Oh, I get you. I'm not going to take you and show you this big school if you're just going to
Yes.
turn
It was
your
about
back on it.
convenience.
Right.
They were not about education. My mom didn't have one. College was never even mentioned in our house. And the only way college-educated people were ever referred to was in a negative way. My dad would constantly say, college-educated idiots.
Oh. Like no common sense.
Yeah. So I was trained, they forced me to take typing and things like that in school, office things, and I was taught that my two options were one, I could be a secretary, or two, I could be a flight attendant because I was pretty. Either way, I'd have a chance at meeting a man who was making a good living.
That was important.
That's the only options they gave me.
So did your husband, when he was proposing, where did he propose? Where were you?
We were at my parents' house and they were gone.
And did he like bring it up with your father? And how did that go?
Well, I mean, my father brought up that you guys are awful young and you don't know what you're getting into, because she's a pretty headstrong person. I mean, she doesn't want to do something, she will not do it.
So how old were you when you got married?
18 and 19.
Now, what would you tell your daughter about getting married at 18 or 19?
It usually doesn't work well.
Yeah.
But we're not an example of that.
Right. But in your case, what made it work? Like, why did it stick?
I actually think leaving and going in the military helped, because we were taken away from our families, our community, our friends, and we immediately had to start relying on each other. We were madly in love and have always loved each other deeply. So
beyond that, he's a cute guy.
Way beyond he's a cute guy.
Right. Yeah.
So we started relying on each other. We traveled with the military for a while. We struggled financially horribly for the first decade we were married. It's funny, it didn't matter, but we put each other through school.
So what kind of car did you have?
Oh my gosh, a Chevy Nova.
Used.
Oh, of course.
Color.
Red.
Did it run?
Yeah, because he was mechanical, so
And
he could keep it running.
And you worked where?
I would work like at little stores or
Like
restaurants.
What kind of store?
Well, when we were on the military, I worked at the BX.
Yeah.
So I was a checkout clerk at one of the military base stores. And part of the reason I went to college is I realized I was being yelled at by not all that sharp people. And I thought, why am I taking orders from this guy?
Non-college educated idiots.
Well, they just weren't the sharpest tools in the shed. And I thought, this is not how I want to spend my life.
Getting yelled at.
Yeah.
By?
And bossed around by people making up really stupid, nonsensical rules.
Right. Arbitrary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how were you able to go to college from these really?
I never thought about it. I just went in and signed up. I knew these two college kids. They showed me the admission office.
Where?
We were in New Jersey,
which
Gibbsboro.
College?
Gibbsboro State College in New Jersey. I just walked in and started signing up. I never knew about financial aid, so I never got any.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That cost you a lot.
Yes, it did. We paid for the education as they went, with a man making about $8,000 a year in the military.
Did your husband say, great, go for it, honey? Or was he like, ugh, this is going to cost us?
No. I said, we need to get an education, both of us, or this is how we're going to live. And I said, I am ready to just keep working and put you through college. Like you could go part-time at night, because it was military. And then when you finish, I'll go. I said that because I thought, he's going into computers, he'll always make a lot more money, so we can get on our feet faster. Because, I mean, we went without food. We were very thin in our 20s, and it wasn't on purpose.
So what would be the priorities? You go to the grocery store and you would buy what?
Sometimes I couldn't go to the grocery store. When I went, I would buy things like popcorn, peanut butter, stuff you could really make go a long way. I can show you pictures. We were so thin. And we didn't care. But he said it to me at the time. I'm not ready to knuckle down. I like hanging out with my friends. You go first. And I said, great, because I'm ready.
And you wanted to study what?
Psychology, sociology.
Why?
Because from the time I was a little girl, I knew that I was going to do some kind of counseling. I didn't know what kind.
What told you that?
I just had a few moments throughout childhood where I got these like visions.
What?
One of them, I was playing in the backyard by myself, and I was probably 10, 9 or 10, and I just got a quick flash of me in some kind of a counseling situation, but I knew I wasn't the counseled.
What did that look like?
Just a flash of me in an office as a woman with two people sitting across from me.
Like a couple?
Yep, just a flash. And I knew what it was. And then I would get into situations where people would comment, look how she helps people. Like this little blind woman in our neighborhood, stuff like that. I would go sit and talk with her. How much can you see? And, I just was curious about her. And my mother tried to shush me. And the woman was like, oh, please. Let her ask what she wants to ask. And so she made me see, I can see that you are next to me. You are kind of a dark image. I can see about how big you are. I remember her telling me the whole story, and then I would let her hold my arm when we walked places and we would talk, and I was a little girl and she was delighted.
So everybody was like a practice patient.
Everyone, even in high school, I was the one saying to the girls, who are having sex, what the hell are you thinking? Get on birth control pills. I was that girl. I remember one girl saying, I think I'm pregnant. I said, oh my God, why would you be pregnant when there are birth control pills? Oh, my mom would catch me. I said, if we get through this, Laura, I remember, then you're going to go get them and you can keep them in my locker because I don't care if somebody finds them. I mean, I was that kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not a prude, but just pragmatic.
Yes, let's go to Planned Parenthood and get you some pills.
Oh, that's wow.
In this day and age, you shouldn't worry about being pregnant.
Yeah.
Not you. I didn't care if they were having sex. That's up to them.
And did she take you up on that?
She did. We kept them in my locker most of that school year.
And did she ever get pregnant?
No, she was not pregnant, thank goodness.
Feel free to tell me this is rude. So when you navigated sex with this man that you'd spend the rest of your life with, how did you make that decision?
We were engaged, and I just knew I'm going to marry him, so.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was already on birth control pills.
So let me ask a totally inappropriate question. Have you ever had sex with anybody other than your husband?
No.
That is like jaw-dropping in this day and age. And I'm the same generation as you.
I was engaged at 17. So I was in the back seat with boys plenty of times.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to have sex with a boy that I wasn't planning a future with. So that my mind was made up to that.
Yeah.
I didn't care how cute he was. We were not having sex unless I was planning a future.
Yeah.
So Dave and I were planning a future.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were a cutie.
I was.
Yeah.
I was. Not gonna lie. I was one of the desired girls. And that's the other thing too. Reputation was real important back then. So it was one thing that was real clear. My cousin was one of my best friends. And I remember him telling me a football story in the locker room about one of the guys I had gone out with was starting to tell some stories. And he said, I just walked around the corner and folded my arms and said, go ahead, finish the story, Mike. Mike said, it kind of stopped right there because Fletcher don't put out. He goes, yeah, because I know everything that happened that night, Mike. So, yeah, I had that reputation that you weren't getting anywhere. So dating was to be fun. It's not about sex.
Yeah.
Sex to me, was about love.
Were your parents religious?
No.
Did you even go to church
They
or
took
synagogue?
us to church and exposed us it was sort of because these kids need to know this. So they took us to church for 7 or 8 years every Sunday and made us take Bibles. They didn't even go most of the time. So they just wanted us to know the Bible, know the stories.
What, if anything, is your concept of a higher power?
It's always been kind of the same since I was little. Like that was the higher power that sent me the image.
Ah.
See? So to me, it is just, it is in everything. that's alive, whether it's a plant or a dog or you or me. The higher power is in everything that is alive. It is the essence of life. It's an energy, it's an intelligence. You can tap into it. So you are praying to this enigma. I don't think it's a person in heaven.
How do you tap into it?
You know, for me, I think you can actually be the observer. You're walking through life, but there's a higher conscious that you have about what you're doing. Like I can do that right now while you and I are talking. I can be here in this moment as Tammy Bell talking to Stuart, but there's this consciousness I have above that can observe what you and I are doing, and that's the piece of me that can connect to the higher power. It's when people are quiet that you can do that. Get direct messages. You get it mostly through intuition, or you can get flashes. I've had flashes. People call those premonitions. I've had those my whole life. But they were always directed me. If you really think about it, Stuart, I haven't had big things happen. It's been a very simple life, but again, I think I wasn't given trauma and trials and tribulations because I believe that I did what I was supposed to do with my life, and I did not need to be distracted by my stuff, and I wasn't. So when I sit down with people, most of the time, I can actually focus on them because I don't have all these I don't have trauma and I don't have addiction and I just haven't had to deal with those pains other people have had to deal with.
You've been on the front lines of seeing other people's a lot of drama.
Yeah.
I mean, life and death drama.
Well, my career hasn't been boring.
Ah, yes.
Nothing about it. My career was a skyrocket. I got a job in an outpatient clinic at 24 years old.
What kind of place?
Counsel on alcoholism.
Oh my God, where was it?
Marietta, Ohio. And I started my graduate degree, and they helped me arrange a schedule so I could go to school and work there.
Now, why alcoholism? Why not you deal with cute little kids or something?
Well, I was interviewing with cute little kid jobs and stuff like that, but this woman, Marge Kimmel, who trained me initially, she and Fran, and Marge was just taken with me from the interview. And then she called the people I'd done field placements with, and one of the oh God, I was such an advocate. I worked in the welfare department for about a year. And it was so bureaucratic and so administrative. And I used to just give the supervisors their shit. Like, we are going to help these people. This is ridiculous.
What a pain in the ass.
Yes, I was a pain in the ass. I'm trying to get help to these people. And I would stand up for them. And she called, and one of the bosses gave me really a glowing report. She's sharp, she's smart, da, 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 da. And he goes, and I'm going to tell you right now, she does not back down. If she thinks something needs to be done, you will never stop hearing about it. She's not afraid. And my boss said, and that cinched it. Because I could teach you what you didn't know about alcoholism, but I had to have somebody strong enough to stand up. This was adult probation and parole mostly. But I needed somebody who could handle these guys. I needed somebody who could go toe-to-toe and wasn't afraid. And he basically said, oh yeah, that's her. So she hired me and she said, Tammy, I can't pay you much, but I can help you get through school, and I've got a training budget you wouldn't believe. I'll send you anywhere you want to go to get more education. She paid me $1,000 a month for full-time work. But she did. She sent me all over the state. I got the best training you could get. Marge was dedicated. I mean, she drilled into me, which many people would say I'm going out on a strong note with confidentiality. Oh my God, you do not ever let anybody know who you know or how you know them, ever. And I mean, and I'm so glad she did that to me at a young age. Especially if you're going to be in a recovering community, part of it, which I feel like I am. you know everybody. So they're like, oh yeah, my sponsor said, and I never would connect to that stuff, Marge Kimmel. So they did a good basic training, and then she sent me out. And then over that couple of years, I ran into I was doing some initial research with adolescents. Nobody had done it before. There wasn't even a research article on drug-addicted adolescents. So I was like studying them myself and writing about it. And then out on the circuit following Terry Gorski, who's got this relapse stuff going on that nobody would talk about in the field. I mean, Stuart, in 1981, 82, 83, you weren't even allowed to say the word relapse, because if you talked to your clients about relapse, you were giving them permission to do it.
Putting the idea in their head.
You're putting the idea in their head. Yeah, all my clients were relapsing. And so even though I was doing everything people were telling me to do, how many meetings you go to? Did you call your sponsor? I went to AA meetings back then too.
You went with them or on your own?
I went with Norm and Charlie, who took me through the steps and explained what was going on. I went one night a week for a couple years. And they told me.
Were those guys clients, or were they?
They were volunteers at our agency, and they were recovering people who used to sit in on groups with us.
And they had done the steps and had
they've
some
been sober
time
for
under their
years.
belt.
Sober for years,
Yeah.
yeah. Stalwarts of the community at the time.
And so they were essentially like cooperation with the professional community. They were trying to, we need all the help we can
Yes,
get.
back
We want
then.
you to understand.
And they would come in and sit with us, and Norm and Charlie tried to teach me everything they knew. And they did. And even with the big book, they said, you don't have to read the whole thing. We're going to tell you what you need to read, and then we'll discuss it. We're going to go through the steps, and we're going to explain what that means to us. And you can try to identify with as much of it as you can. And so that's why I know the language and the lingo.
Is there still some things that to this day you're like, I don't get it, I don't know why blank.
Mm-hmm.
And so the great mystery of why some people recover and some people die alone in hotel rooms is just kind of inexplicable. Are there still some things you're like, I can't figure that out?
Yeah.
Like it seems like he had everything to live for.
I would say most of the time that's not true, that you can't figure it out. Most of the time I can see exactly, when I'm working with somebody, why they're still not sober.
And
But
what
yes,
is that? What are the biggest?
There's multiple. The first and most common one is the one everyone in AA is familiar with. It's really failure to complete the first step. They're still, they still have the reservation. They, deep down, I can get it out of them if that reservation's there. They still think they probably can smoke pot once in a while, and that not cause them more problems down the road.
Have a glass of wine.
Cocaine addicts probably think that. So that's the number one reason, and that explains most of the white chips that you're looking at. The people with back disease. I want my jog back. I want my wife back. Yeah, that's most of it. But then you get that subset of actual relapsers, meaning people who've been sober, have done at least a lot of the deal, and can't maintain sobriety. Now it starts breaking down into subgroups, and it can be everything from dual disordered, that they can't manage in sobriety, and it just getting sober isn't going to fix. Bipolar,
Also have bipolar,
isn't going to
depression.
fix. Trauma. There's a lot of things AA cannot fix. So if it's just alcoholism, it's the problem. AA is the fix. But if it's alcoholism and something else, then the starting point's AA, but there's a lot of other stuff that has to happen, or they won't be able to stay sober. That's the change in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because they finally came to understand, oh geez, some of these guys have other things besides alcoholism.
That we are ill-equipped.
Yes. Where when I was going to AA meetings, that was the book was the answer to everything. And they would even, I remember clients that were told not to come and see me. Okay, their response, one guy, even after I got to Charlotte and was working here, one guy sat across from me and he said, we'd had 2 or 3 sessions, he was a chronic relapser, he was excited, right? he's like, oh my God, maybe there's something here. So he grasped some hope, and he came in, he sat down, I saw the look on his face. I said, uh-oh, what's wrong? He said, my sponsor said, if I stick with you, he's going to drop me. I said, okay. He said, so what do you think? And I said, you think this guy's got good recovery? He said, yeah. I said, do you think he can help you? He said, yeah. I said, okay. Then stick with your sponsor and do everything he told you to do. Because if you have to make the choice, which I don't believe you do, but if you have to make the choice, stick with him.
Wow.
And 1 year later, he came back with a new sponsor.
Had he relapsed?
Oh, yeah. So anyway, I met Terry Gorski. We got off track. I met Terry Gorski at one of these workshops. I started following him because he was the only person saying relapse out loud, and I was frustrated by all the relapse I was seeing, and that there really wasn't answers to it. The literature was weak, and the answers I was getting from my elders, who knew more about addiction than me, was inadequate. So I heard him speak, and I went, this guy is actually studying why these people aren't getting better. So I started following him because Marge had the money, and I started following him a little bit. And we were at a dinner somewhere, and somehow I got seated in front of him. It was a big long table of people, and he made some statement about adolescence and addiction, and I was working with a lot of adolescents at the time. Don't ask me why. I looked at the guru and said, no, that's not accurate.
You stood up.
And the people at the table, there was probably 20 or 25 people, you could hear a pin drop. Here I'm this kid, right? Some of them called me the kid back then. I'm the kid, and I'm looking at him, and he just stared across there at me. And then he said, tell me more. So I said, not only are you wrong, I can prove it. I said, when you're traveling, if you're in Southeast Ohio, stop by, I'll show you. And so we had this conversation, and when everybody broke up for dinner, started to walk away, and he said, Tammy. I turned around, and he said, go for a walk with me. So we went for a walk together that night, and we just talked about addiction, relapse, what I was doing. And he said, let's just exchange phone numbers and try to stay in touch. And by the way, I'll take you up on that prove it to me stuff. I said, just let me know. And we started to talk a little bit from time to time. And then I just looked at him one day and said, I want to be part of this research that you're doing. I want to study the people that don't get well. I want to understand the chronic relapser. The other stuff's easy. Get a sponsor, go to meetings. I want to understand the other part. So he sort of career directed me from them. I took some other positions, got a big AP job, flew around the country in a private jet.
It pays pretty well.
It paid very well. I wasn't making $1,000 a month anymore. And he coached me. You know, he'd sit behind the scenes and coach me a little bit. And we started doing projects behind the scenes. And then I wasn't happy in that job, but he said, you stay there, you get their programs in place because you need that. And I did it. And then I quit.
You walked away from the private jet and the money.
I did. People thought I was out of my flipping mind. But
and if you had put that in today's dollars, it would have been about, well, 6 figures?
Oh, more. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my word.
It was a lot of money and lots of freedom. I mean, Stuart, I was this little girl in her 20s, and I remember the vice president gave me this credit card. He said, here, I know you got to buy some stuff and do some stuff. He said, here, take this. This will be yours. It's a credit card in my name, underwritten by Borg Warner. And I said, well, is there a limit on this? He goes, no, there's no limit on it. And I said, could I put a car on this? He goes, yes, but accounting would catch on to that.
Better not bill it as a car.
So I did that. That was fun, enjoyed it, had great experiences, could tell you about all of them behind the scenes with the VIPs and stuff I didn't think much of. But couldn't wait to get out there and go back with Terry and go do some real work. So I stayed till.
Yeah, why be with VIPs if you could deal with felons? Tammy, why stick with those? Those guys are boring.
I know. I learned all kinds of little tricks from them. One of the vice presidents kind of took me under his wing and he said, he called me in his office one day and he goes, "You're messing up and I'm going to tell you how." He said, you keep asking all this executive committee for permission to do this. He said, "We don't know what the hell we're doing. That's why we hired you. I want you to come into the next meeting and tell us what we're doing." So, and he said, "Just bluff your way through it and put together the program for us you believe we need. Because those guys will jaw all day on what the hell they're talking about." I did. I put a program together. I came back in. I presented it. He was sitting there. I remember the president of the company said, "Excuse me, what is Dow Chemical doing? Are they doing something like this?" I said, "Just like it." I had no idea. And I looked over at John. He's going,
nodding.
He said to me, he's the first guy to say to me, "Don't ask for our permission, beg for our forgiveness. You'll get away with it 90% of the time. 10% of the time you get caught, you'll get your hand slapped. You're a big girl."
Yeah.
That was his advice.
But you're not going to prison. Nothing
Right.
bad. You're not going to get fired.
Right. And I never did get in trouble there. So I did all kinds of great things and then left. And then, private jets. Stuart, I was probably 26, 7 years old. And the president called me to his office one night and he said, "We got a guy down in Arizona." This is like 6 o'clock at night. He said, "I don't know what's wrong with it, but, and I don't care, but he sells more plastic than the rest of this team combined. So whatever we need to spend to get that boy back up on his feet, I want you to do." I said, "Okay." He said, "Get out there, find out what the problem is and fix it." No problem. I said, "When I come in the morning, I'll get Brenda, I'll get a flight out there." And he goes, "Go tonight, please." And I said, "It's 6 o'clock, we're on the East Coast, I can't get to Arizona tonight." And he said, "Oh, for God's sakes, take one of my planes. Just go out front, my secretary will take care of it." I called my husband from my office. I said, "Go to the airport so you can watch this." A plane is coming for me. I didn't even know where to go. I went in there and I went up to one of the counters and I said, "There's a plane coming for me." I didn't even know where to go. She said, "Is this a private plane?" "Yes." "Oh, well, this is where you go. This special place for the dignitaries." And the plane came in, the pilot got off, picked up my bags, brought me on board. And then I got used to it, Stuart.
Yeah, that's the danger.
But that was fun. But none of that was all fun. I enjoyed it, glad I have those experiences. But none of it meant to me what I was doing on the sidelines with Terry. So, so then I quit. We started installing the first relapse tracks based on his original work. First one was at Father Martin's, and that's where I met Father Martin.
And Father Martin was instrumental in the foundation of Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill Wilson.
Knew Bill.
Yeah, and actually, Bill, he was the father confessor. Bill, there's correspondence between them. Bill could confide in him about extremely personal, foibles and things. And Father Martin was there at the inception. He's one of those foundational figures, like larger than life.
For me too.
Yeah.
Father Martin was very famous at the time and opened his treatment center in Havre de Grace, Maryland. And he read one of Terry's books, and he too wanted to do something about what he called the sickest of the sick. Mm-hmm. And
chronic relapsers.
Yeah. So he started working with both of us. Father Martin, I remember, this is true, the secretary I had at the time, it wasn't Donna, she was in recovery. She grabs the phone one day, she goes, "Father Martin's on the phone."
Her jaw drops.
Yeah. She said, "Father Martin's on the phone." I said, "Okay." So he's like, "I was wondering if you would have the time to fly out here. I will pay for it."
Not on a private jet.
Right. "I'll pay for it. Would you come out here and have a conversation with us at Ashley about some of the writings that you've done and some of the things that we're interested in you helping us with?" "Yes." So I went out and, oh gosh, I sat in the back of the room, one of the patient lectures. He was lecturing when I got there, one of the patient lectures. And he points me out to the whole group. He said, look at that youngster back there. That young woman is tearing it up. He was, she's going to do great things in this field. We walked around Ashley. I was arm in arm with Father Martin. It was probably the highlight of my career. It's bringing tears to my eyes. He's explaining what all Ashley means to him and these patients and how, and I'm walking arm in arm with him. And I said to him, what am I here for? And he said, well, because we've read some of your stuff and we want you to come out here and teach us what you know. And I said, what am I going to teach you? And he stopped and looked at me and he said, I'm reading some of your stuff and I don't know some of this stuff and I want to know some of this stuff. That's what you're going to teach me. And I just like, are you kidding me? Father Martin learned something from me. And this guy loved me, Stuart. Every time I would see him, we would talk and he would say things like, well, if we bring these adolescents in and then we have their parents will help us. I said, no, Father Martin, they won't help you. They're not going to help you. They're a problem. I said, as a matter of fact, they're going to bring crap in here. They've got to be screened. And he's like, what? I mean, he was just shocked by all this. But every time I would see him, he would get excited, Stuart, and he'd kiss me on both cheeks.
Well, that is an insight that you're, like, everyone thinks, oh, here's mom and dad. They're there to help.
Yes.
And actually, mom and dad are bringing in a bunch of doubt or division or...
And sometimes contraband.
And why do you have to...
Yes. Yes.
Why do you have to blah, blah, blah?
So that was the start of no. So then he arranged...
And it's also, if I may, the start of the whole family is, to some degree or another, sick.
Absolutely.
And there's no exception. Mom's not exempted, dad's not exempted, brother, sister, children. The whole family has been sickened by the sickest of the sick.
He knew that. He knew that when it came to adults. At the time, he didn't know that with kids. And prior to going to my big corporate job, I did adolescent and adult probation and parole. Mm-hmm. So I was adding to the adolescent literature of which there wasn't any. Mm-hmm. So that's where I was educating him. I wasn't educating him about addiction. He knew that. He just did not understand kids, their addiction process, their recovery process, the pitfalls, all that stuff. So that's what they brought me in there for.
Yeah.
So I worked with them. First we put their adult relapse track in. Got to have so many meals with him. I can remember this was in Maryland, sitting across from me. He goes, now, I was lucky, I got right across from him. He goes, you're having a crab cakes. I said, oh yeah, having the crab cakes.
Oh, wow.
And then everybody at the table, when we were talking about the field of addiction, he was very involved, listening, commenting, serious. His program director and somebody else began to start talking about money, how they get in the money to make a new building.
The capital budget.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they lost Father Martin. He was done. Okay. The jokes started. He was making fun of them. He was sending me little quips across the table, and making faces and everything. So he pretty much, in person, was the same guy you saw. Although I've had some private moments with him I won't share,
right,
where he, wasn't the Father Martin you always see.
Yeah.
But God, he was a good man.
And yeah, just a human being.
He used to charge $3,500 to have him speak, and that was put in a scholarship fund for people that couldn't afford Ashley. And he had a committee that he wasn't part of that found the people that were worthy of the scholarship money.
So he didn't buy himself a Maserati.
He didn't. He lived in a suite at his sister's house.
Yeah.
He was an amazing man. He got to speak in front of the Pope once, and he was telling me about that. One of the first times I ever spoke with him. And Mother Teresa was going to be there. This is years ago. And he said, I'm only allowed to talk for, I don't know what it was, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It was something really short. He has an audience with the Pope, he said. That's how he presented it. I can only talk for so many minutes. He said, I can barely tell you what my name is in that amount of time. He was worried about it because he's a talker. I said, well, you better practice. And he gave my information to Nancy Reagan. So now someone on Nancy Reagan's staff called me and asked me if I would make a presentation to her. And Father Martin was there, and about 1,000 people in the press and all that.
You've got to have had some kind of feelings, though, about the just say no, about bottom line is.
And it was in my book. I had written a book at the time. And the staff that called me prior to showing up for the presentation, they said, so what are you going to talk about? You have 15 minutes. What are you going to talk about? So I kind of went over my presentation with them. They said, that's great. And they said, all right, we've read your book. It's a good book. You make a comment in there that we need you to not make at this presentation.
And that comment was?
I appreciate, and I didn't know her at the time, I appreciate Nancy Reagan's efforts and her ability to draw attention to this subject. Much needed. However, just say no really is not helpful or a way to get to teenagers. So they just didn't want me to say that it doesn't work. I said, yeah, okay, I can avoid that. So I did.
Yeah.
And I made my presentation, and I had sharpshooters on roofs. That took my breath away.
And it takes my breath away to hear all the things she's done. I realize this is a little bit of an abrupt out, but we have so much more next week. We talked for hours, and I want you to hear a lot of it because what she has to say is so important. So next week, part 2, in which we go really deep into her ideas, some of which are controversial, the tact that she took and the method she took to actually see miracles in front of her eyes, people coming back from the edge. She saw plenty of tragedies, but that was the price she paid for just bearing witness to the miracle of recovery. So more about resilience, recovery, and a new life next week. I hope you'll come back. Thanks.
Man Listening is a production of Unmediated LLC in cooperation with the Queen City Podcast Network and Balto Creative Media. Allison Andrews at Andrews Creative and Rachel Clapp Miller are developmental producers. Sally Higgins at Higgins & Owens tries to keep us legal. Our music is A Day at the Park by the group Pictures of the Floating World. Your announcer is Catherine Smith. That's me. Please go to our Patreon page. You'll find us at patreon.com. Look for Man Listening, one word, no spaces. We hope you'll join us by becoming a member. A small investment can raise up the conversation. If you want exclusive member merch like a t-shirt, we can arrange that too.
And a huge, huge shout out and thank you to everyone who has helped and supported Man Listening from the very beginning. Thanks so much.
Don't forget to support us at Patreon. We believe one voice can change the conversation. Click the subscribe button, and next week you'll hear.
I like for people to talk about the inner addict, its voice, the comments it makes, the suggestions it has, the ideas it has. Say them out loud. It loses some power.
That's next week on Man Listening. Thanks.